Welcome to another episode of the Beat Orm Podcast. I'm your co-host, Don the Piz Elevert, joined as always by
Justin Jericho Turner.
And we are two former college roommates getting together a couple decades later to talk about life, business, media, culture, entertainment, and everything in between. Let's go. Justin, what's up, brother?
What's good, homie? What's good? It's been a rough week.
It's been a not so pleasant week, that's for sure. We're going to get around to that in a few. But first, as always, cheers, my man.
Cling.
Salud. What are you working on this week that you've already crushed half of?
Yeah, I've been getting in. This I know we're gonna get into it. I mean, y'all see the word on my chest. Like we're gonna get real today. But my drinks are black too, as y'all know. This is actually it's a non-alcoholic s'mores beer. So it's got a little marshmallow notes, it's got the chocolate notes, and then I spiked it with some spiced rum.
I was just going to comment because I was like, last week, I was the one still recovering from some health issues, some COVID issues. So I was taking it easy and drinking a healthy non-alcoholic drink. I thought you came with a non-alcoholic beverage, but you threw that spiced rum at the end. What kind of rum you spike it with?
Captain Morgan.
Captain Morgan. We're going to talk about that in a hot second. But first, you got to stand up, show the people that what your shirt actually says. The people that check out the YouTube video. All of y'all listening, make sure you check out the YouTube.
Or if you're on YouTube, you see it says Black Lives Still Matter, people. They still matter. I just wanted to put that out there real quick. Yeah, I had to alter my shirt with a little duct tape, but that's all right. Because we still matter.
I feel you.
I'm like, obviously. This shit. I be scratching my head sometimes when stuff happens. You know, we're scholars, Pizzle, and you know, we'll talk about a little bit Black history today. But like, how is it possible that in 2022 that niggas is carving nigga on the side of a gun, Piz? What is going on? Like I'm laughing because I can't do anything else because I've been stewing in my own negrosity all day.
Like I don't need to laugh.
You know why we laugh. We've talked about this on the pod. For all the people who don't understand, Black people use humor to disarm, okay? Because it's hard to be Black American. It's hard to walk around in chocolate skin in this country knowing that there are people in this country who quite literally think we are subhuman and just want to kill us. Like, that's wild shit. People, like, you know, don't pretend to empathize if you don't understand it. And there are plenty of marginalized groups in this country that understand it in different ways. But just to be clear, there's a difference between being marginalized in America and being Black in America. And I just want to point that out. I spoke last week. If y'all checked out last week's pod, I said that America hates women more than it hates any other group. This is true. Okay? Even though I'm railing about, you know, America's dislike of Black, strong dislike of Black, America definitely hates women more. I can prove it because America has done more to actively hate women in the face of pretending to not hate women, as opposed to dudes like this who are out in the street killing us and basically doing it, you know, broadcasting it on the air like I'm an all-out white supremacist. This is just what I do. I'm here to kill niggas. Like this, there's one of those, and there's probably a few more that ain't actually pulling the trigger, but there are hundreds of thousands of men in this country right now practicing anti-women behavior. So I just want to throw that out there real quick. I'm always going to be pro-black because I am, and that's the group that I ascribe to. But I am a hardcore ally, and I do not change my story.
All right, let me break down. Just respond to the things you just said there. First of all, I feel you. Obviously, feel the same pain, but for us at least, I don't know y'all. Whoever y'all are listening to this, who knows what day it is when you're listening to this? But for us, it's Friday. It's Friday. TGIF. So we're gonna work through this pain, but we're gonna work through it in B-Dorm fashion. To your discussion of hated groups and groups that are most hated on, etc. Blah blah. I don't want to make it a competition. My whole thing is, as I've stated multiple times before in one way or another on the pod, like I just think that anybody who is historically disenfranchised, hated on, prejudiced against, whatever you want to call it, should all recognize the similarities in their plight and get together rather than fight amongst each other, and not have it be, because once we start talking about, oh, but we're hated on more, no, we're hated on more, then that's what gets people kind of like, that's what keeps those people fighting amongst each other and not actually achieving anything against the people who are actually the ones that they all have in common that are hurting their life, their quality of life. That being said, what we can turn into a competition is tasty ass drinks. And you didn't even let me talk about my drink.
I'm sorry. You're right. I got real black, and I apologize. And I wanted to take it down for a second. But see, for people who don't understand, this is what B-Dorm is. This is what it is. We were doing this shit 20 some odd years ago in the actual dorm, talking shit, getting bent, and yelling at each other, and then having to correct each other because sometimes things got out of control. So, Fizzle, please tell the people what that big
sequence of events. Sequence of events. First, I got to get into my drink, and then I can maybe get angry with you if necessary.
All right. What do we got?
The reason I was saying the rum, it's interesting you came with the rum, but you didn't bring the rum that I brought to the table, my friend. So I realize we're on episode 8 now. We're on episode 8. We almost got to double digits, and I haven't made anything with Barbancourt.
You sure?
I'm 99% sure. But
I don't know if that's
if
true.
I did and I don't remember, that means it was really good, because that means I probably made an extra one after the pod was done recording.
There it is.
I'm pretty sure I haven't made anything with Barbancourt.
Check us out. Let me see.
I don't let us call us out. But so I was like, let me go get the Barbancourt, because I was like, first off, we got to tell people about Barbancourt, because I realized this is one of the best kept Haitian secrets is our rum. It's not, I shouldn't say it's a secret, but it seems like whenever I ask people who aren't Haitian or don't have close Haitian friends if they've had Barbancourt rum, they haven't had it. So to let y'all know that if you don't have a Haitian friend, well then, let me be your Haitian friend and tell you, go to your local liquor store, ask them if they have Barbancourt rum. If they do, get some for yourself. And however you like to enjoy rum, this is going to make it better than what you've ever had before. It is the perfect rum because you can sip on it and it's smooth. It makes the best rum and coke. You can argue with me on that all day and night. You can argue, but it makes the best rum and coke. But what I made here, because I wasn't going to come with some just plain old rum and coke. I made a Barbancourt mojito. Fresh, all fresh here, right? So first off, took your advice from several episodes back when you said, get that agave syrup, Piz, so that it doesn't, use the science so that it mixes better, doesn't coagulate or whatever with the ice. And I don't get that sugar rush because it doesn't have that same glycemic impact, right? So I finally picked up some agave. So this is agave syrup, muddled mint, fresh mint, muddled, fresh lime, squeezed, juice, threw the lime in there, pulp, orange Angostura bitters, or Angostura, however you say it, bitters. What else is in here? Club soda, the Barbancourt, some rocks. Let's go. This right here, part of what also inspired it, it's about to be sweltering hot. It's like that a storm just rolled in here. We're getting that tropical weather. It's about to be 90 degrees all weekend. I had to be like, let's do this. If we can get that Caribbean weather, I'm gonna represent my Caribbean roots. So all y'all out there, I'm trying to figure out what to call this though. I don't know if this is a Haitian mojito or a Bidor mojito. Like, what is this? Am I drinking a Mohation? Am I drinking a Brojito? I don't know.
Sapacito.
A sacpas, a mabuleto, a sacpaceto. For those of y'all that know Creole say. Whatever it is, I gotta tell you, after I made this, every once in a while you make a drink. Sometimes this happens with food, when you make, but sometimes it happens with drinks. I made this drink, I took a sip, and I said, God damn. And then I hit it with more rum.
Right. It was tasting a little bit too good. It up. So you got to top it.
And I said, let's go record this pod. Right now.
Word. That's why you were like, I need like 10 minutes to make my drink.
Yeah, that's why I told you. I was like, give me a hot second.
Word.
I was hand squeezing lime and muddling mint. And I realized when I texted you, it was like, that's when I realized I was like, I don't even have a muddler. You know that like thing, that device that like bars, that little like you don't have one at home.
Well, I have a mortar and pestle in the crib.
All right. Well then, gift your boy for the holidays next time they roll around.
Gotcha. I believe it's pronounced pestle. I don't know. One of those.
Like, we're not going to talk about like if you came to listen to this conversation between me and Jericho on the Bidorn podcast, you didn't come to hear the same old discussion you hear on any other news. So are we going to talk about the mass shootings that have occurred, and in particular this Buffalo situation? Of course we are. But first, we want to talk about some stuff that may pertain to that. So, JT.
Yes, sir.
I've had a lot of thoughts this week, got to sit about on this, and something that I started wondering that I've never asked you before. What is your most irrational fear in life? Ooh. Like when I say irrational fear, I don't mean like when I'm always bringing up these apocalyptic, dystopian, whatever situation. Right. I mean like an irrational fear that's rooted somewhat in reality.
All right. When I was a kid, grew up in Left Rack City, Queens. Shout out to Left Rack. Left Rack adjacent.
Shout out Left Rack.
Know the neighborhood.
First of all, is it Left Rack or Lefrak? Because at Amherst College, it was the Lefrak Gymnasium, and that used to confuse the hell out of me. Because I was like, wait, yeah. But I used to hang out in Left Rack, Queens. So we going Left Rack or Lefrak?
There's definitely, the neighborhood is called Left Rack. For Queens heads, y'all know what's up. It's like if you live in New York and you talk to tourists and they're like, "Yeah, I'm going to Houston Street." You're like, "No."
Oh, no. Don't ever hit me with where's Houston Street.
Right? It's Houston. So it's one of those things where when you live a certain place, sometimes you pronounce some shit kind of fucked up. The dude's name is Samuel J. Lefrak, right? Or whatever. But whatever. His name is Left Rack in the hood. So I was watching the 86 Mets. That's how old I am. I was a little kid jumping up and down in my bed watching the Mets crush fools. And the largest cockroach in the world crawled across my bed and crawled across my foot. And I freaked out, jumped up, kicked the roach into the sky, right? And so the thing started flying. I just took off out of my room. Went to go get my mom's. I was like, "Mom, there's a beast in my room, tried to kill me." So she went in there, found it, killed it, and then brought it and held it in my face. And was like, "You don't have to be scared of this thing." And of course, I was a child, so I screamed my ass off and ran into the next room and stuck my head under a pillow. And I had nightmares about roaches for like 2 weeks straight. I wouldn't say it's not an irrational fear, it's an actual fear. um, like the roaches of a certain size freak me out, man. Like I look at them and I'm just like, yo, what is that thing? What is that alien thing?
All right, I got a couple questions. Well, oh man, lot to go down in this issue. I didn't know that's where you're gonna go with this. But first off, for those that hear you tell this story and then are like, oh, this man, he must have grown up in some hard times in the real ghetto. Like, first of all, like if you live in the vicinity of New York or any metropolis area and you think that there aren't roaches anywhere near you,
Yeah.
you're joking yourself. I
Yeah.
laugh when people first come to New York in their first couple of years and they go to a restaurant and they're like, oh, I saw a roach in that restaurant, I'm never going back there. I'm
All
like,
right. Well, don't eat
there's
nowhere.
roaches. Yeah, that you can't eat anywhere because there's roaches in the back of every place. Like, that's what happens. But you said that roach flew.
Yeah.
I'm confused. I didn't think roaches flew. Am I
Bruh,
wrong on this?
them big ones fly, man. The real big ones, they fly. They can't like take off or from the ground and fly, but they will jump and flutter because they got wings, and it's fucking gross. It looks like a monster.
That's disgusting. That's
Yes, it is.
absolutely disgusting.
Yes, it is.
Hey, Beatorm listeners, you've probably heard me mention in passing that I do professional voiceover work. Well, some of that includes audiobooks that you can download off of Audible. So check this out. We know you love to listen, and for a limited time only, we've got a great special offer for our dedicated listeners. We're happy to be able to offer you up to 2 free books when you try Audible Premium Plus. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, to Dolly Parton and James Patterson's Run, Rose, Run. There's something for everyone, and they're the perfect companion for your weekend run or your summer road trip. You can listen to thousands of great titles, as many as you want, whenever you want. Stream or download to listen offline. Click the link in the show notes and get started today. Have you ever been in anywhere in the Caribbean? Talking about that Barbancourt, talking about Haiti. When the first time I went to Haiti, I was like, I didn't get to go to Haiti till I was like, I think 13 years old, 12, 13 years old. And I remember trying to fall asleep and hearing tick, 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 like some little footsteps. I was like, who's pitter pattering on the other side of the room? And then you open your eyes and you're like, oh, your insects in this part of the world.
They got boots on and shit.
They got military boots on, and they're big. Like, that's the other thing. People get mad about these tiny little roaches here. No, sir. Don't go somewhere that's got actual roaches of a I'm gonna date myself with this one, but you were talking about that roach in '86. You ever seen the movie The Princess Bride?
Yeah, man. Rodents of unusual size.
Where he goes through that area where they got the ROUSs, the rodents of unusual sizes.
Yeah, bro. Classic film. Film.
Caribbean got them cockroaches of unusual sizes.
Word.
So anyway, so that's your irrational fear, although in fairness, not necessarily so irrational, because roaches do, they can carry some grimy, I think germs or diseases or some other stuff, right? And they're, but
I'm also allergic. I'm allergic to everything.
You're allergic to roaches? We talked about this last time. Who the fuck is allergic to roaches? How the hell are you allergic to a roach?
I don't know.
How do you find out that you're allergic to roaches?
I had to go to an allergist. Did I tell you this? I went to an allergist and they put like this grid on your arm, on both arms, and then they
Oh yeah, I know
scratch you
people
with
who've had that
everything.
done.
Yeah, the scratch test. So roach is one of them. I'm allergic to this shit.
Why are they scratching you with a roach though? And why does it matter if you're allergic to roaches?
Because I live in New York. We just talked about this.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. All right. All right. All right. So anyway, then, I'm gonna admit to you an irrational fear of mine that made it through all of our friendship, this quarter century friendship of ours, that somehow I never divulged to you what my most irrational fear in life is. But I really, really hate and get a little concerned when I see a slug.
Slugs.
Slugs, man. And when I say slugs, I'm not talking about like weaponry.
Not right. Not bullets. Like the little
Yeah.
slimy
Like
grubby joints.
that's a rational fear.
Right.
That's a rational fear. As we alluded to in the opening of this discussion.
Word.
But slugs, I'm talking about those fat, weird looking, moist, wormy joints that can only come out at night. They can't be in the sunlight. Like, first of all, if you can't be in the sun, like,
you're a vampire.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, so you're vampirous, these things. I don't like it's. I know it's irrational because like a slug isn't out to get me in any way, shape, or form. If it is out to get me, I'm pretty sure it can't catch me. I've mentioned before that I'm not quick, I'm not stealthy, but I'm stealthier than a goddamn slug. And as long as I get my hand on some salt, salt happens to be a weapon of mass destruction to these slugs. But I grew up in Valley Stream, Long Island, where slugs, I don't know what's up with the town. I don't know if it's the town I grew up in. I don't know if it's the block I grew up on. I don't know if it's just our backyard, but there's a full militia of slugs that comes out at night. So like in our backyard, especially when you have a barbecue, they smell that barbecue, they smell that sauce, they smell that pickles, they smell the essence of that good cooking. And then those slugs start creeping out in force. And so I'm gonna tell you how this all started, right? Because it's not just slugs; it's really like worm-like things of all that nature. So when I was a young kid, my grandfather, this is my mom's mom, rest in peace, rest in power, rest in whatever else you want the P to stand for. But I had very few, like, I guess, one-on-one quality moments with my grandfather because, in addition to the age difference that you have grandparents, I had a language barrier that a lot of immigrant kids from immigrant families experience. And I didn't really speak Haitian Creole or French all that well at that point. And and I still don't, I'm not fluent at least. And but my grandfather, that's all he spoke. But we were having a moment in the backyard. And he was joking around with me about, and I recognize now that he was joking, but I didn't realize he was joking then. And that's an important part of the story. He was joking around with me in the backyard because I was barefoot and he was telling me, don't walk barefoot in the grass because if any of these worms bite you, which I don't even know if worms bite per se or those kind of worms, but he was like, if any of these worms bite you, then you're going to walk and not be able to walk and you're going to have the shakes and not be able to move and it's going to ruin your life and all. And like he was saying this in like a funny way in Haitian Creole. And me as a kid, as an impressionable youngster, I'm just like, whoa, I got to put some shoes on. I got to avoid these worms and any of these worm-like things. Now, thinking back on that, I was thinking back on that this week, and I'll explain why in a moment, but I was thinking back on that moment this week because I was like, wow, if I just had a grown-up ally step in at that moment who had heard that discussion and just said, oh, grandpa's just messing around. That's not true. Don't believe that. Something to that effect set me straight. Maybe I don't grow up to have this rational fear, but because that never happened, this little idea about worms being something I shouldn't touch, shouldn't step on, shouldn't go near, will mess me up in some way, sat in my brain, festered. Nobody knew about it. Nobody around me knew about it, right? Because they weren't there to hear this conversation. So nobody knew that this is like developing inside of me. And then lo and behold, I grow into this adult. It's not until high school that at some point I'm somewhere with some friends that like someone pulls up an earthworm in their hand and I'm like, ah! And I run. I was like, what you holding that dirty ass worm in your hand for?
Oh man.
Because I was scared shitless of a worm. And now as a grown-up, like I know this is completely, utterly irrational. I know that like they're good for the earth. They do good things and they're not out to get me. But you know what happens? I can't help it. I get out there. We go. In fact, I think we might be barbecuing this weekend for my pop's birthday at my parents' crib. And come nightfall, like I start looking out for these joints all over the place and trying to avoid when they start coming out, because I have this irrational fear of the worms that was never set straight, and that grew and festered as I matured into this subconscious fear that became a reality of my life that I can't even shake off if I try. Now. Getting back to some of the matters at hand here. So there've been a lot of headlines in recent weeks about mass shootings. We're not going to be able to talk about, we can't even get around to them all. But a lot of the focus obviously has been on Buffalo. And since we're both New Yorkers, that's something that's relevant to us, not only because of us being New Yorkers, but that Buffalo mass shooting was one that happened to be one that is an act of domestic terrorism that is by someone filled with hatred that is trying to cause a fearful response specifically to the Black community, to which you and I are a part of. That being said, though, I was when I was seeing this on the news, what I started thinking of is, man, I'm getting really confused by how young some of these people who are filled with this hate are. And wondering, like, how do you get at a young age do you get so filled with hate? And that's when I started remembering some of the things I've learned and understood about psychology and the dynamic of how the mind works, and remembering that most hate is fueled by fear in some respect, right?
Yes, sir.
So there's been a lot of focus in the media about, the proclivity to violence and why people have such easy access to assault style weapons. And there are important discussions that we've touched upon and we'll discuss in the future. But I really want to talk about this topic of fear that seems to be what actually ignites the flame in these situations. And I think it's one thing to have logical fear as a result of direct experience, right? Like that our brain is programmed to create synaptic shortcuts in the brain that create a faster response so that you don't have to think about things. So as a kid, you've never seen fire. You don't know what happens when you touch fire. You touch fire, it burns you. Your brain creates this shortcut so that you don't need to think about it anymore. Instinctive reaction, fire, don't touch, that'll burn me. Right? But we live in a society where so much fear is both perpetuated and acted upon by individuals who have no direct experience that actually justifies that fear.
Right.
In the manner that I'm talking about.
Right.
Now, combine that with the fact that something, and I think I might have mentioned this on a previous episode of the pod or some discussions you and I had, where something that I really have embraced in recent years is a philosophy that we as humans tend to confuse perception with protection of our own subconscious expectations. And when I say that, I mean basically that our eyes and our brains, a lot of people think function as cameras that take in what we're seeing and ingest that, and then make determinations based off what we're perceiving. But in reality, we actually function as projectors that take what exists in our subconscious, filters what we are seeing through that, and then puts a filter, kind of like these filters you see people put on the gram, that actually changes realities and shift it to the expectations of what our pre-existing subconscious ideas want it to be.
You're getting real deep. You're gonna have to dumb that down a little bit.
Well, that's why I'm gonna step away in a second and let you more eloquently explain this to people and what your thoughts are. But I had a lot of conversations in like a couple of years ago, especially when during the George Floyd, after the George Floyd murder and during the George Floyd protests that ensued, with friends who consider themselves allies and are great people, but who would said things, along the lines of, I support you in my own beliefs, but when it comes to my family, my friends I grew up with, etc., there's a lot of people who harbor a lot of these prejudiced, racist, xenophobic, whatever it is, sentiments, and I can't confront them on that. I don't want to make things awkward among them, but that's not me. That's not me. And that's where I start to have problems, because you and I, as we're a couple of black dudes, have it on a podcast, like we're not going to have an impact on the other people who are on the level of the people who are out there going to commit these types of mass shootings.
Right. We don't have access to those people.
We don't have access to the people. But every one of these people, every time you see one of these people on the news, they're doing interviews with all these people who are in these people's lives, who are not people of color, who are friends or family, who are saying, we knew that this person was, had these sentiments, and it's deplorable and detestable, and it's a shame. It's like, yeah, it's a shame, but how come nobody stepped in to shut that down? So in any case, I know I threw a lot at you there. A lot. That was a lot. But just like you had to unload at the beginning, I need to have a couple of sips of my drink and get rolling here. So those are my thoughts on it. What say you, sir?
I would begin with, this the present day concept of racism is just a strange thing. I started talking about that a little bit earlier. But Piz, you heard about the two high schools in like right suburbs in New York? One high school had like two separate racist incidents with the other high school. It was one happened over a basketball game. I don't even know if I heard about this one yet. And there's just it was racial slurs being slung in public with great comfort, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. And it happened multiple times between these two particular schools. And this is New York. I mean, they're like, not that far from the city, not that far removed from, predominantly black neighborhoods, right? So there's something happening in the echo chamber that is social media that allows for an idea, as hateful as it might be, to be magnified and multiplied such that what we would label as an irrational fear becomes an actual fear because of how magnified it becomes in the echo chamber. And I don't know a lot about this particular kid. I think he's 18 or 19, or he's a teenager for sure. We could talk all day about how he shouldn't have had access to an assault rifle after having been arrested, after having made a threat against his own high school. We can talk about that ad nauseum. How he didn't end up on a red flag list that prevented him from getting a gun. How the people in his life didn't prevent him from getting guns after he was arrested for threatening the high school. We're not going to talk about any of those things, which are all extremely relevant. What we're going to talk
Mm-hmm.
about is the fact that this kid, whatever his beliefs were, however quiet he was definitely, it was brought to someone's attention, right? In this case, it was brought to law enforcement's attention. We didn't have to talk about the people in his life who could have circumvented some of this violence. Law enforcement was made aware of it. So I like, in a situation like that, why isn't there some kind of mandatory anger management course, or something, some kind of corrective measure that could have been taken that wasn't taken? um like, when I was in middle school, I got in trouble with some kids, with one of the teachers, and I had to go to anger management counseling. I was a little kid. Like, you know, this is a teenager who lives in a county with access to assault rifles. And I wanted to get to your point, because the problem with this situation is oftentimes it's these people's lack of access to us that allows these kinds of ideas to propagate. And if you don't know anything about a person or people, and you allow all of your ideas to come from other people who don't know anything, then you are double down on dumb. You know nothing twice. And this is happening all the time. And then for all the reluctant allies, all the people who could have stepped in, there's a whole lot of, like, I don't want to be labeled as a troublemaker, right? Like, I don't want to be labeled as the unfun person at the family barbecue, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that bullshit going on that is very problematic, because as far as I'm concerned, like, that's where it's supposed to happen. That's where conflicts are supposed to happen, before people can be outside affecting other people's lives who they don't know at all. That happened to you. That person lives in your existence. They're in your circle. I feel like you have a certain responsibility to at least try to make an impact. And, like, taking it back to one of the conversations we had on an earlier pod, I am not a doctor. I'm not a COVID-19 superstar, but I was trying to get people vaccinated who I knew weren't vaccinated. I did it because I felt like maybe these people will listen to me, because I am an authority figure in their lives. Right? There's some of my students, some of the people that work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I felt like, all right, maybe they'll listen to me. Maybe they won't listen to the people on TV. Maybe they'll listen to me. And that's the attitude that I feel like people need to have. And that's the attitude that some of those, civil rights activists who weren't black but put their asses on the line for us and got killed for us, that's what they were doing. They were like, you know what? We're going to take it upon ourselves to communicate to people who might not listen, because they can't hear voices. They can't hear black voices.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give it another voice. And, for some of those people, they lost their lives for it. And I get it. It's scary to put yourself out there for a problem that doesn't, quote unquote, directly affect you. But if this doesn't directly affect you, then I feel like you don't really belong among us with humans. Like, go live in a cave somewhere and isolate yourself, because it should bother you. It should bother you that somebody can decide upon themselves to get a gun, walk into a place, and shoot people just because of what they look like.
There's a reason I told that I told that story that I told. I mean, if it's not obvious already, that story I told about my grandfather and the irrational fear. One of the reasons that story came up in my memory that I hadn't thought about for a long time, but that's kind of when I was sitting there thinking deep about this stuff this past week, because that's what happens to us in the black, when you're part of the community that's affected by these things. We sit there and it ends up occupying our subconscious for a long time. And that's another part that people don't realize. This causes a lot of stress and anxiety in the lives of people who are part of the communities that are affected by these things. You can't just move on with your day. Going back to what I talked about with that example of fire, for a lot of people, that fire in their lives is all they don't have. If you haven't seen a black person in this example, but you've seen all of these, all you see is the what the news puts on and shows you, and what the movies show you, and especially if you grew up when we grew up in the 80s and 90s, when the majority of the roles that black people had were either criminals or, or thugs of some, or really poor people of some sort. Of course, that's what you're going to only think. You're only going to think, and I shouldn't. And you know what? I shouldn't just say poor people, because economic status doesn't define the quality of people's nature. So, but black people were misrepresented quite extensively in and still to this day are, unfortunately, in film and media, and that then perpetuates this irrational fear in people who that's their only experience with black people.
Yeah.
So to close this off, I'm going to say there's a lot of synchronicity in the universe, and I like to appreciate it when it happens. And so while I was having all these thoughts this week, I actually got to narrate a history lesson for some grade school or junior high kids that was talking about the Birmingham protests of the 1950s. During the civil rights movement of the 50s, 60s, etc. And one of the things that it actually sparked me after narrating that, and it was referencing the Martin Luther King Jr.'s involvement and his letter from a Birmingham jail that he wrote. And so I went back and I actually started reading that letter from a Birmingham jail. And my God, if you want to understand how intelligent and how amazing of a person Martin Luther King Jr. was in many ways, go just Google letter from a Birmingham jail, and actually don't just read some synopsis of it. Go read the actual thing, because I know that I've learned about this multiple times in history lessons. It was referenced in class when I was younger, but I probably was less mature and didn't care about it as much. But when I don't know if I ever read the full thing, but reading it gives you an impression of at a young age, growing up in a society where black people had difficulty getting education in the first place. What this man was able to write and put forth is just a intellectual masterpiece. But there's this one excerpt that I think is very relevant that I want to leave us with on this topic. And here's what he had to say. I've almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action. Now, to put this in context, this was a letter to white clergy that supported Martin Luther's cause. Yeah. Woo, that's a big mistake right there. Who supported Martin Luther's cause and the civil rights cause, but who we're saying, like, can you do it a different way? Can you wait till we get the right people in power who will put the right laws in order, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And while the context is a little more grandiose and maybe different than what people are dealing with on an everyday basis, the one theme that does persist is that preference of negative peace and the absence of tension to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. And in order to achieve that positive peace, you need to take a proactive step when you see these things happening around you, especially when there's nobody who is a member of the group that is being affected by what's happening around you are there to step in. That's when you as an ally need to step in and actually say something. And you just saying a couple of words to the people around you, just saying that, hey, that's not cool what you just said or did, can make the world of difference. Science fiction, which I know we've talked about before. You and I are both science fiction aficionados and fans. You have given lectures on science fiction.
Yes, I have.
In the world of science fiction, fear is used all the time. For example, we've talked about being comic book fans, and take Batman, for example. Batman is a comic book that at its core is all about mastering fear and using it to your advantage to become something larger than self.
Right. Weaponizing fear.
Weaponizing fear, which is what we mentioned before early on this podcast, how in the society we live in, fear is constantly weaponized to for especially in politics and by those in power. But another way that fear always comes up in the sci-fi realm is in these alien invasion movies, which I watch a lot of. It's one of my favorite type of movies. You make one of the movies, you got me. low quality, low budget. I'm there. I'm there for it.
Right.
And in numerous alien invasion movies, a common theme is fear of the other being a big uniter of humankind. We finally unite because we now have an other that we can all point to and say that is different from all of us. We hate that thing, even though we have no idea what that thing is about.
Well, in their defense, in those movies, that thing is trying to kill them.
That thing. Sometimes in those movies, we have no idea if it's trying to kill us. It's just we just know it's coming, so we don't know what it's going to do.
But then it does.
But then it tries to kill us.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
All right. The reason I bring this up, is because the reason that was on my mind. So I'm thinking about this fear topic while all this stuff is happening this week, and then, or in the last couple of weeks, and then I see this headline that NASA is sending nudies of humans into outer space to try to attract the aliens to come here.
Right.
And then I was like, all right. First of all, for those of y'all that don't know, like, it's kind of funny because, like, if this was even a decade ago, if we were having this conversation on a podcast, people would be like, these guys are out there with their conspiracy theories. They're talking about aliens. These are crazy people. During the pandemic, the government actually admitted that aliens are, that at least that UFOs are a real thing, that they have no idea what's going on, that there's these tic-tac shaped ships that like do things that we don't have the technology to do, that they've been chasing, and not just us, all other countries around the world. And then they released a report about all the government findings in recent years about UFOs, et cetera, et cetera. That all happened. And a lot of people don't know about it because they were like, oh, y'all are occupied with this pandemic that's going on. All right, let's just drop this in the background and see if you care. So look it up, Google it, read all this stuff. I already have, obviously. But that being said, JT, they sent these nudies. Now, all right, I'm not exaggerating. I'm going, but the headlines are exaggerating. You and I both know, I'm sure, that they didn't really send nudies, and it's not the first time. And in fact, this is more of a theoretical thing because it's not even something that's actually been done yet this time around, but it has been done in the past, that they've sent some like radio signal or other type stuff that included like stick figures drawings of humans.
Yes.
This time, they're talking about the idea that some people propose that may or may not occur is sending like in binary code nude outlines of human beings. Nonetheless, I think it's just funnier, the idea that we sending porn up into outer space to attract aliens. So, getting back to the topic at hand here. Sorry. My brojito got me off track.
No problem, bro. No problem.
So the reason I was thinking about this alien invasion, JT, is that what if it works? What if this works?
Okay.
And then the aliens come down here. So we know one of a couple of things. These aliens are like, oh, it's that kind of party. All right, let's go. Y'all sending nudies into space. Let's get it on. Right? They're coming here to have
they're going to New
planet
Orleans.
Earth orgy style type stuff. Or for those of you that listened to the last episode of the podcast, if you didn't, please go back and listen to it. Episode 7, where we had a little part of our discussion involved why do some people feel the need to dictate how others live their lives, and a lot of those people try to make people dial back their sexual habits. Well, maybe these aliens are like, uh-oh, we were going to leave y'all alone, but y'all are a bunch of heathens sending porn into outer space.
Yo.
So in any case, these are the thoughts that I was having about when I saw it.
Welcome to the Beat On podcast.
So of course, I then thought to myself, well, I got to ask my man Jericho about this, because if these aliens comes, and here's my question for you, JT.
All right, I'm ready.
Let's say these aliens come down, their spaceship lands, they open their door, it's got some big green arrows pointing, come in. And we decide as a world, okay, we can send 4 people. Jericho, you're on deck.
Oh.
You, my man, are going to go represent humankind to talk with these aliens. We don't know which kind of party they're here for.
I might be,
but you're going, and you're going. Are you right now? You're like, Piz, I did this last weekend.
Right. I was partying with aliens last weekend, bro. What you talking about?
Yeah. So you have been nominated to represent humankind in this first contact with these aliens that responded to the nudies that we sent into outer space, and you get to bring 3 people with you. This isn't one of those dead or alive questions. This is this is rooted in reality, because this is a thing that could actually happen. So You're bringing 3 currently living people with you. Who you're bringing and why? Let's go.
3. All right, 3 living humans. All right.
3 currently living humans.
All right. All right. I'm gonna start with the smoothest talking human on planet Earth, Barack Obama. He's coming with me. Right? For no reason other than the fact that he's that's the smoothest brother. He just is. Like, I always go back. People is like, yo, why is Obama still Obama? Well, it's because some people have swag, and one of them we elected president. It happened somehow, and the swaggiest dude in the country happened to be president. So that was dope. Yo, my man, he had 300,000 people in Germany came out to hear Obama talk. You know what I'm saying? So I'm taking Obama with me. That's because he will speak with a little bit more, we'll call it diplomacy, than I would, right? Because I'm banging the camera up. Hold on, I'm getting excited. All
right. Is he? If we had to go back and figure out who the most swagalicious president of all time is he like he's the clear winner?
Yeah, he's a clear winner. He's a clear winner. JFK was kind of slick, but he had that Boston accent.
JFK had swag.
That Boston.
Clinton. If you've ever talked to anybody that's actually seen Clinton speak in person, I've heard from people who have been multiple people always say that Clinton had that like in-person swag that he like, that you were just like, people would be in awe of that guy.
I'll give Bill some props. I just, like, I've had models who work in my company be like, yo, I would throw panties at Obama right now. Like, how old is he? I would hit him with panties right now. So I want to, I'll give him the nod. And since I'm going with human specimens, my next human specimen is going to be Serena Williams, because I just want the aliens to see this big, beautiful, powerful creature. I'm like, yo, this is what human women can look like. Like, maybe you thought human women were dainty and whatever. No, sometimes they look like this. You know what I'm saying?
But then they might take you to. They might be like, all right, well, we're taking you to human court for false advertising because you sent us this these binary code outlines you sent us didn't have that much that much curvaceousness to them, brother.
Bait and switch. That's for the marketing people. All right. I need one more. I see. I went politics. I went sports. I'll take Aquafina. Because she's a ridiculous human. Because every time she opens her mouth, I crack up laughing. Even when she tries to say serious things, I think it's funny. And I want to be able to represent like this spectrum of humanity without bringing any white people. So that's what I did. Boom, there it is.
So after we talked all the time about racism, you went out of your way to apply reverse racism to a little bit of your theory of who you're going to bring with
you can bring a horse to water, man.
You just added Justin to the hypocrisy checklist.
All right, go ahead. Give me yours. I know you got.
So to recap, you got Obama, you got Serena, and you got Awkwafina. You want the aliens to think that we keep it nice and simple. We got single name humans on this earth.
That's right.
Do we tell the aliens that we call it Earth, or do we tell them that we call it Earth?
Earth. ERF. Earth.
Welcome to planet Earth.
What's good, aliens? What's good? Welcome.
Welcome to planet Earth. Here's Serena, Obama, and Awkwafina. All of our names sound oddly alike.
Oh, and Jericho is with them too. I forgot about my own name. This is all completely ridiculous.
And that's right. You're with them.
This is all ridiculous. All right, I'm with it.
All right,
give me yours.
For me, my list. I'm bringing my man Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes, Black genius. We need him up there too.
Black genius, but like I don't even. It's not even like I don't care if he was black, white, blue, green. Like listen to the man. Listen, like I love his podcast. Speaking of our podcast, I love his podcast, Star Talk. And I love he has the perfect combination of the scientific understanding that we want at the table if we're going to be dealing with a situation like this. Because like we step into that, we don't know what's going to happen when we step into their spaceship. We don't know what's going to go on. Like we need someone that can, on a whim, be like, oh shit, like they got the like calculation of the oxygen levels in here for us to breathe wrong. Like let me sort this out. Like I need someone who's got that level of knowledge with them. Then, unlike you, I am bringing a Caucasian person with me. I'm bringing a Caucasian woman by the name of Daisy, who actually, I was gonna say nobody, but if some people on this podcast will know, she was for those listeners to this podcast that worked with me at the when I worked in professional language services. She's one of the top translators in the world. She was a linguist who there's like standard rates at which people translate in the industry for translation. It's like by the word, how many words you can translate per minute, per hour, all this type of stuff. Like that all went out the window with this woman. She's one of the best. She's one of the most accomplished translators on the planet. She's one of the most linguistic experts, speaks multiple languages. Like she was a machine when it comes to translation. And so I'm kind of came up with that because I'm a big fan of the movie Arrival. I hope you and I get to talk about that another time. I know you haven't seen it yet. I asked you that over during the week. We'll talk about. Hopefully we'll get to break that down another time because it does a great deal talking about the issue of how language shapes perception or vice versa. But that being said, I need someone who, because it's not a matter of that they're going to speak the alien language, but if you need someone who understands how languages work so that we even stand a chance to communicate. If they haven't already figured out our language or don't have some like multi-universal communicator that they have in like Star Trek and stuff. Right.
Right.
And then I'm bringing Elon Musk. Why? I think I like the guy. Um, but like honestly, I think he's probably one of them. He's the closest I could think of to someone here who might actually like they might be like, oh shit, you brought one of us with you. So I'm bringing Elon Musk because I also know that like Elon Musk, if it turns out he's not one of them, or like he's like a different alien from a species like that they got beef with or whatever, like he's also probably gonna have in his pocket some like high tech like pen sized weapon of mass destruction to like help us out, because he he's got access to everything. Like he's got inventions that aren't going to be known to the masses for hundreds of years.
Right.
So that's my crew. Me,
Yo,
Neil deGrasse Tyson, Daisy the linguist, Elon Musk. We rolling in there.
Alien. That dude ain't from here, Fizz. He's not from here. I don't like pick two.
He ain't from here.
He ain't from here.
But he runs here. Like he's getting close to damn near running this place.
Word.
Man. So that's who I'm bringing with. I'm kind of mad that you didn't nominate me to be one of the peeps that comes with you, but that's why I took you off my list.
I figured you had your own list, man. I was, Yo, I was watching Jeopardy this week, and Gil Scott Heron was one of the answers, and I got real excited because they don't usually, people like Gil Scott Heron are not usually Jeopardy answers, and it brought me back to this moment that I just wanted to share with our listeners. The revolution will not be televised, people, but it will be recorded on a podcast. So remember to tune in to the Beat On podcast on a regular basis with my man Piz and Jericho Turner, because the revolution might not be televised, but it is being recorded.
And that is another episode of the Beat On podcast. We'll catch you next time.
All right.